They ran us through the compliance chamber on the third day, before we'd even been assigned bunks in the permanent block. Standard intake protocol at Veth-Kalder Unified Academy. You went in, the sovereign lattice read you, and you came out harmonized, your cognitive baseline tuned to the shared frequency the Academy had been refining for 11 decades. It didn't hurt, they said. It didn't change you, they said. It only smoothed the edges that would otherwise cause friction in a cohort learning environment. 812 cadets went through that week. I was the last. I hadn't asked to be last. My transfer paperwork had flagged something, a notation in the neural baseline field I'd never thought to look at, filed by the survey authority when I rotated back from my final deep isolation posting. 7 years on Careth. 9. A tidally locked moon with no relay infrastructure and a magnetosphere that ate transmission signals like wet paper. 7 years of total cognitive isolation. No broadcasts, no shared network hum, no ambient information weather. Just me, the survey instruments, and whatever I could build inside my own head to keep myself from going flat. The compliance warden's name was Dasithuar. Species I hadn't encountered before, bilateral body plan, roughly humanoid in proportion, but the skin was a deep slate gray and the surface of it moved. Not breathing moves. The chromatophore layer underneath was constantly cycling. Pale golds, soft greens, muted ochre, in patterns that meant things in Dasithuar's language that the translation rig only partially caught. When Dasithuar read you for compliance, those patches brightened. Contact points activated. The lattice worked through them. He processed Cadet 712, a Vorith male, in 40 seconds. Ran the harmonic sequence, filed the result, waved him out. Vorith cognitive architecture was apparently ideal lattice material. Highly networked, externally receptive, almost eager to find a shared signal. Most of the cohort had gone through in under a minute. A few took 3. One had taken 9, and the techs had made notes, and she'd walked out looking the same as she'd walked in, which was probably fine. I sat down in the chair. It wasn't really a chair, it was a contact surface that conformed to your geometry. And Dasithuar's chromatophore patches brightened to a pale gold that the translation rig rendered as something between professional attention and mild curiosity. Transfer intake, he said. Careth, 9 posting. 7 standard years. Yes. He said nothing else. The lattice activated. I know what it's supposed to feel like, because the other cadets described it afterward over mess hall food. They were still too nervous to eat properly. A warmth, they said. A sense of other minds nearby, not intrusive, not loud, just present, the way background heat is present. The lattice found the shape of your thinking and offered it a handhold. And your thinking, if it was built the way most thinking is built, reaching outward, borrowing signal, completing itself through connection, took the handhold, and the harmonic was established, and you were filed as compliant, and you went to get your bunk assignment. In the chamber, I felt the lattice arrive. Then I felt it look. It stayed there a while. The warm peripheral sensation the others had described, the handhold offer, I recognized it the same way you recognize the shape of a door frame in the dark. I knew what it was doing, but the door was reaching for wasn't one I'd built. 7 years on Careth. 9 with no signal to receive had rewired the floor plan entirely. My thinking didn't reach outward. It had learned not to. It completed itself, circled back, sourced from its own prior outputs, built forward from its own prior conclusions. Not because I'd chosen that architecture, because there'd been nothing else to build with for 7 years, and the brain adapts to available materials. The lattice found no external hook. It tried a second frequency band. The readout, I could see it reflected in the pale shift of Dasithuar's chromatophores, returned the same result. Not noise, not resistance, not a block. Just a system that didn't present the interface it was looking for. A second technician moved to the console, quietly, then a third. Dasithuar's color shifted. The translation rig gave me something that landed between analytical recalibration and a category I didn't have a word for, but which felt approximately like a mathematician staring at a proof that has arrived at a correct answer by a route that shouldn't exist. The lattice ran its full sequence. 11 bands. The other cadets, The ones who'd taken 9 minutes instead of 40 seconds had pushed in a band 4 or 5 before the harmonic locked. The lattice ran all 11 on me, systematically, with the patience of a machine that didn't have anywhere else to be. It found nothing to pull. Not nothing as in empty. Nothing as in a signal so entirely self-referential, so completely internally sourced, that the lattice's external hook architecture had no surface to grip. Whether that meant I was already compliant, already at baseline by virtue of having had nothing to deviate from for 7 years, or whether it meant I was structurally unreachable, a system that had, by prolonged necessity, become its own closed circuit, the readout apparently could not determine. The technicians had begun making notes that had the quality of notes made by people who intend to write a paper later. Dasith-UR's chromatophores went to a steady, even silver I hadn't seen him use before. The translation rig was quiet. That color wasn't in its reference set. He leaned forward slightly. The contact patches on the backs of his hands brightened once. Not the lattice activation brightness, just attention. When you were on Careth 9, he said, alone. How did you think? I considered the question. Not because it was complicated, because it was the first time anyone had asked it in a way that suggested the answer mattered to them professionally rather than medically. The same way I do now, I said. Dasith-UR held the silver color for another 4 seconds. Then his chromatophores cycled back to professional gold, and he reached for the filing console. He entered my intake classification as baseline incompatible, self-sourced. In the harmonic result field, where every other cadet's record showed a numeric compliance index, he left a notation that the translation rig rendered as instrument returned no differential, subject presents no external hook surface, result indeterminate between full compliance and structural non-engagement. He waved me toward the exit. At the door I paused, not because I had anything to add. I noticed one of the technicians had stopped making notes and was just watching me walk, the way you watch something move when you try to figure out how it's moving. I understood the impulse. I didn't know how to explain it to him. I'd had 7 years alone in a dead signal moon with nothing to think with but what I'd already thought. You either lost yourself in that, or you built something that didn't need the signal. I hadn't known which one I'd done until the lattice told me, by finding nothing to reach for, that the question was probably the wrong frame entirely. My bunk assignment was in Block 7. I walked there in the late cycle light, past 811 cadets who were harmonized, tuned, filed compliant, and ready for the curriculum. I was thinking about lunch. The compliance notation stayed in my file for the rest of my time at Veth-Kalder. No one amended it. No one ran the sequence again. Dasith-UR's paper, when he eventually wrote it, cited the Careth 9 posting as the proximate cause and spent 11 pages on what the lattice's failure to find an entry point meant for their model of how cognition becomes self-sustaining under extended isolation. He never did settle on whether I'd been compliant all along or whether the instrument simply couldn't reach me. I'll tell you what I told him when he asked. 3 years later, over a drink he insisted on buying. Same answer. The same way I do now.